Hi everyone. In this class, we are going to see about the fetal malposition. In the fetal malpositions, first we will be dealing about the occipito-posterior position. So before dealing the occipito-posterior position, let us see what is malposition. A malposition is a cephalic presentation other than the normal well-flexed anterior position of the fetal head. That is, if the fetal head is not well flexed, if the fetal head is not in the anterior position of the pelvis, in these conditions, we are calling it as malposition. That is, if it is other than occipito-anterior position, and if it is not well flexed, we are calling it as malposition. Example is occipito-posterior. Now, this picture shows the different quadrants of the pelvis. In this picture, if the occiput is in the right anterior or in the left anterior, that is if the head is in the right anterior or left anterior portion, that we are calling as normal. This is right anterior or left anterior position. We are calling it as normal, or it's not malposition. Otherwise, if it's as per this picture, if it is in that is these two things are normal, left occipito anterior and right occipito anterior. Here the occiput is pointing towards the left iliopectineal eminence. You can see over here, that is left occipito anterior. Here the occiput is pointing towards the right iliopectineal eminence, that is right occipito anterior. And if the occiput is pointing towards the right side, towards the iliopectineal line, that is if it is towards the left iliopectineal line, it is left occipitotransverse, and if it is pointing towards the right iliopectineal eminence, it is right occipital transverse. And if it is pointing towards that is if the occiput is pointing towards the left sacroiliac joint, that is left occipito-posterior, this one. And if the occiput is pointing towards the right sacroiliac joint, that is towards the back, right sacroiliac joint, that is known as the right occipito-posterior position. Now we can see the causes of malpresentation. The malpresentation can occur mainly due to three causes, that is defect in the power, defect in the passage, and defect in the passenger. First, let us see this one by one. First one is defect in the power. Power means it's a uterine contraction. If mother is having pendulous abdomen, that is the laxity of the abdominal muscles, that may occur due to the multiparity or advanced age of the mother. In these conditions, the pendulous abdomen will be there, and the uterine contraction, due to the laxity of the muscles, contractions of the uterus won't be effective. And next one is defect in the passage. Passage means it's a birth canal or it's a pelvis. That is, if contracted pelvis is there, that is if the diameter of the pelvis, already in the previous video about the pelvis, we have seen the diameters of the normal female pelvis. In case if you are having any doubt, you can go through that previous video. Otherwise, if any of these diameters are less than 0.5 centimeter, that pelvis we are calling as contracted pelvis. And if the pelvis is contracted, a normal sized baby will not come out through that pelvis. And next is anthroid pelvis and anthropoid pelvis. That picture I will be showing you later. That is male pelvis or contracted pelvises. That is, if the pelvis is not normal gynecoid pelvis, normal delivery may not occur. There is a chance for occipito-posterior position, or even there is a chance for malposition also. And presence of pelvic tumors. That is, in case, especially if the tumor is in the anterior portion, when the baby is coming downward, usually it is supposed to be in the anterior portion of the pelvis. But here, if tumor is blocking that, instead of coming to the anterior position, it may go to the posterior position. So there is a chance for different positions if the tumor is there. And uterine abnormalities such as bicornuate uterus, septate uterus, or fibroid uterus. Here also it is same. One thing, if these abnormalities are there, uterine contractions will not occur properly and it will not direct the baby into the birth canal. And another thing, if the fibroid is in the lower segment, because of that obstruction, the baby may use another position, or sometimes that may leads to the deflection of the baby. That may not give to proper flexion. And next one is placenta previa. This here also it is same as like fibroid. If placenta previa means we know that placenta is located in the lower segment of the uterus. Usually the placenta will be in the upper segment of the uterus. Here the placenta will be in the lower segment of the uterus. So when the baby is coming downward, it will prevent the, especially if it is in the anterior portion of the uterus, it will prevent the downward movement of the baby. So what will happen means baby will occupy the mostly available position is in the posterior portion. So the baby will occupy the posterior aspect. So that leads to the occipital posterior position. Now we can say that defect in the passenger. Who is the passenger over here? Here the passenger is the baby. So defect in the passenger includes preterm fetus. In the case of preterm baby, the normal well-flexed attitude will not be there. The baby will be in a deflexed attitude, or there is a chance for relaxation instead of that proper flexion. So that leads to the malposition. And next one is intrauterine fetal death. In the case of dead baby, or in the case of IUD also, the same thing, baby will not maintain the normal well-flexed position. So there is a chance for malposition. And fetal macrosomia, that is large size baby. If the size of the baby is more than 3.5 kilogram or more than 4 kg, usually you can see it in the case of gestational diabetes, maternal diabetes, that may lead to, that is one of the cause, that may lead to the fetal macrosomia. And if large baby is there, means there is a chance for accommodating the widest diameter. The baby, instead of coming to the anterior narrow diameter, the baby may go to the transverse or other positions. Next is multiple pregnancy. If two babies are there, one baby may be in the normal position and naturally the other baby may occupy the abnormal position. And if two babies are in the same cephalic position also, there is a chance for one baby will be in the normal anterior position, and in anterior position two babies cannot get accommodated, so the other baby will be in the posterior or in the lateral position. That is one reason. Then congenital anomalies or anencephaly and hydrocephalus. Anencephaly means we know that it is small head. That is brain matter will not be there. Size of the head will be very small. And in case of hydrocephalus, the size of the head will be large. In these two cases also there is a chance for malposition. Then polyhydramnios. In the case of polyhydramnios, due to the, especially when the membranes are rupturing, there is a chance for gush of the amniotic fluid, and due to that gush, along with that, the baby also may enter into the pelvis. That is one reason. So there is a chance for, along with that gush, sometimes the umbilical cord or fetal vessels may come out in front of the presentation or in front of the head. So the cord, it may be a cord presentation. There is a chance for that. And another thing, engagement of the head will not occur on the correct time. The next thing, cord around neck, that is coils of cord around the neck favor the face presentation. That is, due to the cord around neck, due to the pull of that cord, sometimes there is a chance for deflection of the head, and that leads to the malposition. So these are the main causes for the malpositions, that is defect in the passage, passenger and power. Next we can see the signs suggestive of malpresentations. If malpresentation is there, means how will you identify that? Now we are going to see that. First one, in majority of the cases, pendulous abdomen will be there. That is laxity of the abdominal muscles you can see. And second thing, non-engagement of the presenting part in the last 3 to 4 weeks in primea gravida. Usually in the case of primea gravida mothers, who is primea gravida? A lady with her first pregnancy. In the case of primea gravida, the engagement of the presenting part will occur 2 to 3 weeks before the delivery. And in case if any problem is there, this will not occur. So that is a suggestion that suggests the malpresentation. Then premature rupture of the membrane or its rupture in early labor. If the presenting part is not well fitted and if it is not a normal position, there is a chance for premature rupture of the membrane, and that is also a sign of malpresentation. Next, complications of malpresentations and malpositions. Already we have seen there is a chance for premature rupture of the membrane or its early rupture in labor due to the ill-fitting presenting part. And second thing, there is a chance for cord presentation and cord prolapse if the presenting part is well fitted to the fetal pelvis. Through the sides of the presenting part, extra space will not be there. So usually the umbilical cord also will not get space through the sides of the presenting part, so it will not come in front of the presenting part. But if the presenting part is not a well fitted presenting part, well fitted presentation, there is a chance for escape of the umbilical cord through the sides of this presenting part, and that may lead to the cord presentation or cord prolapse. Next one is prolonged labor due to hypotonic or hypertonic inertia. There is a chance for prolongation of the labor. If the presenting part is well fitted, it will act directly over the cervix, and there is a chance for proper dilatation of the cervix. That is one reason. And second thing, if the presenting part is not well fitted, or if it is not a normal presentation, we know that in the case of completely flexed attitude, the maximum less diameters of the fetal head will be getting engaged. But in the case of malpresentation, there is a chance for other bigger diameters for entering into the pelvis. So in that case, normal rotation or normal mechanism will not occur properly. So if the normal rotation is not happening, there is a chance for delay in the labor. And finally, due to the delay, during this process, the entire process, the uterus will be contracting. And due to the delay, the uterus will get tired, and there is a chance for inertia or decreased contractions of the uterus. Next one is obstructed labor with a higher incidence of rupture uterus. If it is a malpresentation, that is if the presenting part is large, we know that the normal delivery will not occur. For example, if the mendovertical presentation is there, that is in the case of phase presentation, if the mendovertical diameter is getting engaged, usually the rotation of the head will not occur with that highest diameter. So there is a chance for obstruction of the labor. But even if obstruction is there also, the uterus will be contracting again and again. Finally, there is a chance for rupture of the uterus. And increased incidence of instrumental and operative delivery. Usually if the labor is getting delayed, what we'll do? We will use either forceps or windows. So there is a chance for instrumental and operative delivery. And if there is arrest is there, we may go even to the cesarean section to save the life of the baby. So that's why I have told there is a chance for instrumental and operative delivery. And increased incidence of trauma to the genital tract. See, if the presenting part is not well fitted, there is a chance for tear of the genital tract. That is one thing. And second thing, when the uterus is already, we have seen there is a chance for rupture of the uterus. So that rupture, even it may get extended to the cervix also. That is one thing. And third thing, increased incidence of when we are using this operative instruments, forceps or vacuum, there is a chance for trauma or injury to the soft tissues of the genital tract. And the next one is increased incidence of postpartum hemorrhage and puerperal infection. See, already I have told you that there is a chance for delay of the labor due to the malpresentation. So due to this delay, the uterus will be contracting again and again. That also we have seen. Finally, the contracting capacity or the uterus will get tired and its capacity to contract effectively will decrease. And if the uterus is not getting contracted effectively, what will happen in the postnatal period? There is a chance for bleeding. The relaxed uterus, that may lead to the bleeding. And another thing, when the labor time is getting prolonged, the number of pervaginal examinations will increase. So the chance for infection also will increase. And next one is increased incidence of perinatal mortality. That is, if the labor process is getting delayed, there is a chance for death or other problems of the baby, and even it is there for the mother also. Next, we are going to see the occipito-posterior position. See, in the vertex presentation, here also the head is the presentation, where the occiput is placed posteriorly over the sacroiliac joint or directly over the sacrum, it is called occipito-posterior position. It's a vertex position with the fetal back directed posteriorly. That is, here in occipito-posterior position, the occiput will be in cephalic presentation. This is cephalic presentation only, but the occiput will be pointing towards the iliopectineal eminence, that is towards the posterior aspect of the pelvis. If the occiput is pointing towards the right sacroiliac joint, it is known as the right occipito-posterior position, and it is otherwise known as the third position of the vertex. And if the occiput is pointing towards the left sacroiliac joint, it is known as left occipito-posterior position, left occipito-posterior position, or it is otherwise known as the fourth position of the vertex. And in some cases, this occiput may point directly towards the sacrum, that is known as the direct occipito-posterior position or DOP. See, here in this picture you can see the right occipito-posterior position and left occipito-posterior position. Occiput is pointing towards the right sacroiliac joint over here. See, right sacroiliac joint, and next here it is pointing towards right sacroiliac joint and left sacroiliac joint. Okay, next you can see the occipito-transverse position. Already I have told you, if the occiput is, there are different positions of the positions. We have already, I have told you that that is if the occiput is pointing towards the iliopectineal line, that is known as the transverse position. The sagittal suture also will be in the transverse diameter of the pelvis. That is, if the occiput is pointing towards the left iliopectineal line, it is known as left occipito-transverse, and if it is pointing towards the right iliopectineal eminence, it is known as the right occipito-transverse. Here you can see the picture of those two things. And next we can see the incidence of occipito-posterior position. There is a chance for 10% of the normal vertex presentations. Out of 100 vertex presentation, 10% may become occipito-posterior position. In that, right occipito-posterior position is 5 times more common than the left occipito-posterior position due to the dextrorotation, which favors left occipito-posterior position. Now we can see the what is the dextrorotation? Dextrorotation means that is usually in one side. Even in ROE and LOE also the same thing we can see. In the one side it is occupied, one side is occupied by the rectum. So there is a chance for baby to be in the other side of the uterus. Now we can see the causes of occipito-posterior position. First one is shape of the inlet or shape of the pelvis. Android pelvis and anthropoid pelvis. That is, anthroid pelvis, we know that it is typical male pelvis. Its diameters are low. Anthropoid pelvis also, you can see the picture here. It's narrow pelvis. The diameters are narrow. Especially it is very narrow towards the anterior portion. See here. So the baby, when the baby is coming downward, usually that may go towards the backward. So here it is a little more broader. So that may occupy the posterior position. And next we can see the fetal factors. Deflection of the head, that leads to the occipito-posterior position. That is, if the placenta is attached to the anterior wall of the uterus. For example, that is already we have seen, if placenta previa is there, when the baby is coming downward, the anterior portion will be occupied by the placenta. So the baby will go to the posterior portion. Next is high pelvic inclination. High pelvic inclination means, see, if you are looking into the normal pelvis, we can see that the posterior portion is having more length and the anterior portion is only 4 cm length. That is, symphysis pubis is approximately 4 cm. And that leads, so the plane of the pelvis is slightly inclined. Because of that height difference, the plane of the pelvis is slightly inclined. And if the sacralization of the fifth lumbar vertebrae is there, if the fifth lumbar vertebrae is also getting joined with the sacrum, naturally what will happen? Height of the sacrum will increase. And if the sacral, one of the sacral vertebrae is going and joining with the lumbar vertebra, usually the height of the sacrum will decrease. If the height of the sacrum is less, it is known as low inclination, and if the height of the sacrum is more, it is known as high inclination. This is here, you can see the angle of inclination. See, this is the sacrum. If this vertebra is also coming and joining with here, that is known as a high angle of inclination. If this is moving upward, it will be up to here. So the angle of inclination will be less. So if the angle of inclination is more, there is a chance for posterior position. So in erect position, this we have seen already. Delay in the engagement may occur because of the axis fall to coordinate the feet. That is due to that high length at the back side. Usually the anterior position may get failed to occur. That favors the occipital posterior position, and that leads to the difficulty in descent of the head due to the length, that is at the back side length will be more. So difficulty of the baby will occur for its descent. Next one is uterine factor. That is abnormal uterine contractions may cause or affect, leads to the persistent deflection and occipital posterior position. If the uterus is not getting contracted effectively, that may leads to the occipital posterior position, and that may leads to the deflection of the fetal head also. See, this reasons, the causes you can see in this. Here pictures are there. Here you can see this pendulous abdomen, laxity of the abdominal muscles, anteropoid pelvis. We have seen that is narrow pelvis, anteroid pelvic brim. This also we have seen narrowing of the pelvis, flat sacrum. If the sacrum is flat, that is due to this high inclination and low inclination that we have seen, and the placenta previa. Placenta is in the anterior wall, and right occipital transverse position. So these are the causes. And next we can see how to diagnose occipital posterior position. First one is by the abdominal examination. In the abdominal examination, we know the first step is inspection. In the inspection, if we are able to see a saucer-shaped depression at or below the level of the umbilicus, and usually umbilicus also will be flat in this case. The abdomen looks flattened below the umbilicus, and that is known as a saucer-shaped depression, and it is due to the absence of the round counter of the fetal back. Usually, if the baby is in the occipital anterior position, the fetal back will be, that is exactly the back side of the chest will be coming approximately below the level of the umbilicus. So that will be protrude that abdomen. It will lead to the protrusion of the abdomen and protrusion of the umbilicus. Here, that back will not be pushing the abdomen, so there is a chance for depression of that area. That's one thing. And next one, a groove may be seen below the umbilicus corresponding to the neck. Where the neck and body is joining towards, there is a groove that you may be able to see below the level of the umbilicus. And fetal movements may be detected near to the midline. See, in the lateral position or in the occipital anterior position, the fetal movement will be more towards the lateral side, either in the right side or in the left side where extremities are present. But here, usually the extremities will be coming towards the middle of the or towards the center, so the fetal movements also will be more towards the center. So these are the things you can see in the inspection. And next, in the palpation, in the fundal palpation, usually you can feel the breech, that is soft, bulky, irregular, non-palatable mass in the fundal palpation. And in the lateral palpation, the back may be felt with difficulty towards the flank. Towards the flank, you can feel the continuous curved resistant mass. And the anterior shoulder is, if you are feeling for the shoulder, usually it will be towards the midline, but here it will be 3 inches away from the midline. And the limbs are easily felt near or on both sides of the midline. Here the extremities will be, the fetal limbs will be towards the midline, and the flank will be, back will be towards the flank. And in the case of pelvic grip, head usually not engaged due to deflection. Head won't be engaged, and the head you may feel as smaller because of the biparietal diameter. Bitemporal diameter. Usually in the case of ROA and LOA, we have seen biparietal in the previous videos which are demonstrating the mechanism. We have seen that the biparietal diameter will be the engaging diameter in the case of normal ROA and LOA. But here the engaging diameter will be bitemporal diameter. So the head you may feel as less because the bitemporal diameter is lesser than the biparietal diameter. And next one is second pelvic grip. In the case of second pelvic grip, already I have told you that the engagement may not have occurred, so it will be ballotable or the head will be movable. And in auscultation, the maximum intensity of the FHS is here towards the flank, or the back is towards the flank region, so FHS also will be hearing over there. And in the case of occipital posterior, left occipital posterior position, it may be difficult to locate it. And in direct occipital posterior position, that is if the occiput is pointing towards the sacrum, you may be able to hear it towards the midline of the abdomen. Next, in the vaginal examination, when you're doing the pervaginal examination, usually the membranes will be ruptured. Otherwise, if the membranes are not ruptured, it will be protruding through the cervix. So you will be able to feel that protruded membranes through the cervix. And if the membranes are ruptured, when you are palpating the presenting part, due to the deflection, you will be able to feel the anterior fontanelle very easily. That is at the right side or left side of the left side, you can feel the anterior fontanelle towards the iliopectoral eminences. And the sagittal suture will be in the right oblique or left oblique diameter of the pelvis. And posterior fontanelle can be felt towards the sacroiliac joint. See, in the pervaginal examination, you can feel the anterior fontanelle, sagittal suture and posterior fontanelle. And during the labor, usually the labor will get delayed, and the diagnosis also will be in the later labor process. The diagnosis of the occipital posterior position will be difficult. Once if the labor started, diagnosis will be difficult, and usually caput formation also will be there, and that caput formation may make it difficult for you to palpate the fontanelles and sutures. In that case, what you can do means you can see the unfolded pinna. You can locate the pinna earlobe and you can see the pinna. And if the pinna is unfolded, and it will be the unfolded pinna will be pointing towards the occiput. On the basis of that, you can identify the position of the occiput. And next one is ultrasonography. Ultrasonography for determining the presentation or position, we are doing it rarely, but we can locate it exactly due to the ultrasonography. Now we are going to see the mechanism. Here I'll be just touching about the mechanism because in the previous video I have given a detailed explanation about the mechanism. So I'm not going to take in detail. Here the lie is longitudinal, attitude of the head is deflexed, presentation is vertex, position is right occipito-anterior or left occipito-anterior, denominator is occiput, presenting part is middle or anterior area of the left parietal bone. And for the mechanism of this ROP or LOP, you just see the previous video. Okay, now we are moving to the next section, that is non-rotation. See, usually in the mechanism we know that the head will rotate. Whatever part comes and meets the resistance of the pelvic floor will rotate forward until it comes under the pelvis. Here, in the case of occipito-posterior position, it's an unfavorable situation because we know that if you know the mechanism, or if you have seen the mechanism, you will be knowing it now. The head is supposed to rotate 3/8 of the circle. That is, the head is supposed to rotate from the sacroiliac joint to the symphysis pubis. That much rotation it has to take. So if any of the problem, if there is a problem with the presentation part, or if there is a problem with the uterine contraction, or if there is a problem with the pelvis, there is a chance for non-rotation or mal-rotation. That is, in certain cases, occiput fails to get rotated. This causes deflection of the head, the weak uterine contraction, faulty pelvis such as flat sacrum, prominent ischial spines, convergent side wall, weak pelvic floor muscles, big baby, and immobility of the fetal trunk subsequent to the drainage of liquor amine contributes to the faulty rotation. Incomplete forward rotation. The occiput rotates through 1/8 of the circle anteriorly and the sagittal suture lies in the bispinous diameter. Further anterior rotation will not occur and the arrest in this position is called deep transverse arrest. Remember, it is deep transverse arrest. Instead of the 3/8 circle rotation, it will just rotate 1/8 circle and it will come to the transverse diameter. And later the forward rotation will not occur or anterior rotation will not occur. The fetal head will get caught in between the bispinous diameter. That is known as a deep transverse arrest. Next one is non-rotation. Both sinciput and occiput, both front, back portion and front portion, both sinciput and occiput touch the pelvic floor simultaneously due to the deflection of the head. That leads to the non-rotation. The sagittal suture lie in the oblique diameter and this condition is known as the oblique posterior arrest. Next is mal-rotation. If extreme deflection is there, the sinciput touches the pelvic floor first, resulting in the anterior rotation of the sinciput 1/8 of the circle and putting the occiput to the sacral hollow. Here, when the sinciput is rotating 1/8, occiput will be in the posterior position in the hollow of the sacrum, and that leads to the persistent occipito-posterior position of the vertex. In favorable condition, sometimes in this case, in the case of persistent occipito-posterior position, sometimes the delivery may occur like a face-to-pubis delivery. But in unfavorable situations, when arrest will occur, and it is known as occipito-sacral arrest. Occipito-sacral arrest. See, here we are discussing in case if the rotation of the head is not occurring properly, what will happen? What will be the outcome of the occipito-posterior position? So one thing we have seen, there is a chance for deep transverse arrest, there is a chance for lateral oblique arrest, there is a chance for occipito-sacral arrest. We have seen these three. Next, we can see about the course of labor, about the progress of labor. The average duration of both first and second stage of labor will get increased over here. Because in the normal labor, we know that the head is just rotating 1/8. Here, it is supposed to rotate 3/8 of the circle. So naturally, the time duration also will be more. In the first stage, there is a chance or tendency for the delay. First one, in the engagement itself, there is a chance for delay due to the persistent deflection of the head, thereby increasing the diameter of the engagement. See, if the head is slightly deflexed, instead of the suboccipitobregmatic diameter, occipitofrontal 11.5 cm will be coming and will be entering into the pelvic brim. So there is a chance for, if the pelvis is slightly contracted, there is a chance for non-engagement. And next one is status of the membrane. The deflexed head become overt and this won't fit effectively, or it won't be well fitting to the pelvis. So there is a chance for rupture of the membranes and drainage of the amniotic fluid. Next is uterine contraction. Already I have told you the presenting part won't be well fitted to the pelvis. This ill-fitting presenting part may leads to the ineffective uterine contraction. That is, if the presenting part is well fitted, it will get acted directly over the cervix and that leads to the slow dilatation of the cervix. And if the presenting part is not hitting on the cervix, that may leads to the improper dilatation of the cervix, and that there is a chance for prolongation of the first stage. And And second stage also may get delayed due to the long internal rotation or malrotation of the head. And the third stage, there's a chance for increased incidence of postpartum hemorrhage and trauma to the genital tract. Already in the previous, while we were discussing about the causes, I have told you that in the case of occipito-posterior position, the duration of the labor will increase, and when the duration of the labor is increasing, the uterine muscles may get exhausted, and there is a chance for laxity of the muscles of the uterus, or there is a chance for inertia or improper contraction. So if the uterus is not getting contracted properly in the postnatal period, there is a chance for postpartum hemorrhage, and due to the operative inferences, there is a chance for injury to the genital tract. And another outcome is there is a chance for long anterior rotation, there is a chance for short posterior rotation, there is a chance for non-rotation or short rotation. First, let us see about the long anterior rotation of the occiput. Usually, that 3/8 of the circle, the occiput rotate normally, spontaneously, without any other assistance. And incomplete forward rotation means occiput rotate 1/8 of the circle anteriorly, and sagittal suture come in the bispinous diameter, already I have told you, and it will get caught over there, and that is known as a deep transverse arrest. We have seen it already. And non-rotation, both sinciput and occiput touches the pelvic floor simultaneously, and that is known as a oblique posterior arrest. This also we have discussed. And malrotation means in extreme deflection. If the head is fully deflexed, the sinciput touches the pelvic floor first, and this also I have told you. And there is a chance for phase 2 pubis delivery, and if that phase 2 pubis delivery is not occurring, this position is known as, this position will become, the occiput will be, cementum will be pointing towards the symphysis pubis, and occiput will be towards the sacrum, and this is known as persistent occipitosacral position, POOP, persistent occipitosacral position. In favorable circumstances, if the uterus is well getting contracted, if gynecoid pelvis is there, there is a chance for spontaneous phase 2 pubis delivery. This also I have told you. In unfavorable situations, when arrest is occur, that leads to the occipitosacral arrest. Arrested occipito-posterior position. Failure of the progress in spite of good uterine contractions for about half an hour to 1 hour after full dilatation of the cervix, it indicates that it needs assistance or operative interference. Assessment before doing this interferences, or before applying the forceps, or before applying the ventos, you should see this first. First, you should see the size of the baby, engagement of the head, amount of amniotic fluid, fetal heart sound. And in the vaginal examination, you should see the station of the head, position of the sagittal suture, degree of deflection, degree of molding, assessment of the pelvis. That is, you should see the ischial spine, whether it is converging, side walls of the pelvis, whether it is converging or diverging, sacrococcygeal joint, pubic arch, transverse diameter of the pelvis. All these things you should see during the pelvic examination. And if arrest is occurring, first you can try for the ventos or vacuum extraction. In suitable cases where the pelvis is adequate, and if the non-rotation of the occiput is there, and if it is due to the weak contraction or due to the lack of tone of pelvic floor muscles, you can apply the vacuum or ventos, and that leads to the descent, and it will promote the rotation. And this vacuum extraction provides traction to the, that is, we know that in the case of, by using vacuum we can ensure the rotation, and we can at the same time we can apply the traction also. That may reduce the duration of the second stage of labor, but there is a chance for cephal hematoma, retinal hemorrhage, and intracranial hemorrhage if you are using the vacuum. And next is, instead of the vacuum, you can use the forceps. For ensuring the rotation, you can use the forceps. Otherwise, if the forceps is also getting failed, you can go to the cesarean section. Otherwise also you can, if the pelvis is not favorable, if the uterus is not contracting effectively, if the size of the baby is more, in such cases directly you can go to the cesarean section. If in the case of if the case is unsuitable for manual rotation by using forceps or by using vacuum, or if pelvic contraction is there, you can go for the cesarean section. And the next is craniotomy. If the baby is a dead fetus, instead of going for the cesarean and other things, you can go for the craniotomy. That is making an opening in the cranium and extracting the contents of the head and thereby reducing the size of the fetal head. That is the craniotomy. And next is other outcomes. That is, there is a chance for, or we can call it as, otherwise we can call it as the complications of the occipital-posterior position. There is a chance for deep transverse arrest. Already I had told you, if the fetal head is getting caught in the bispinous diameter, that is known as the deep transverse arrest. The head will be deep in the cavity, the sagittal suture is in the transverse bispinous diameter, and there is no progress in the descent of the head even after half an hour or to 1 hour after the dilatation of the cervix. After the full dilatation of the cervix also, we can wait for maximum half an hour to 1 hour. Even after that also, if there is no progress, it suggests the deep transverse arrest. And the causes include the defects in the pelvis. If the ischial spines are more prominent, or if the sacrum is flat, or if the sides are converging, side walls of the pelvis is converging, if the fetal head is deflexed, if the uterine contractions are weak, if the pelvic floor muscles are lax, these things may lead to the deep transverse arrest. And how to diagnose the deep transverse arrest means, the head will be engaged. The sagittal suture, when you are doing the pelvic examination, you can see the sagittal suture will be in the transverse diameter of the pelvis. Anterior fontanelle will be palpable, and if you are assessing the pelvic capacity will be defected. Defects in the pelvic capacity, that is converging side walls or prominent ischial spines, such things you can see. And how to manage it means, if the vaginal delivery is safe, that is if the fetal heart sound is good, contractions are there, if there is no contracted pelvis, in that case you can try for the vacuum. Otherwise you can ensure the rotation of the pelvis, rotation of the baby by using the forceps, either by using the Kielland's forceps or by using the Wrigley's. We won't be using normally. By using the Kielland's forceps, you can ensure the rotation of the head. And if the vaginal delivery is not safe, if inadequate pelvis is there, if big baby is there, in that cases you can go for the cesarean section. If the baby is a dead baby, already we have seen, we can go for the craniotomy. Otherwise, we can go for the manual rotation of the head. For the manual rotation of the head, we can use two methods, either whole hand method or half hand method. In the case of whole hand method, in these two cases, first we are supposed to give GA, and we should maintain the lithotomy position. We should maintain the strict surgical asepsis. Bladder should be emptied, and by conducting the vaginal examination, you should identify the direction of the occiput, and if caput is there, you can identify the position of the occiput by locating the unfolded pinna. That is, the unfolded pinna will be directing towards the occiput. And in the whole hand method, what to do means, you just catch the head. In the case of right occipital posterior or right occipital transverse position, use the left hand, and in left occipital posterior or in left occipital transverse position, use the right hand, and introduce the hand into the vagina in a cone-shaped manner after separating the labia by using the other two fingers of the hand, fingers of other two hands. And the four fingers are pushed the sacral hollow to be placed over the posterior parietal bone, and thumb is placed over the anterior parietal bone. inserted. The one hand already I told you that you are supposed to insert into the vagina, and the thumb of that hand should be placed over the anterior parietal bone and the other fingers over the posterior parietal bone. And 4 fingers of partially supinated hand are placed over the occiput and the thumb is placed over the inciput in the case of oblique posterior position. And rotate the head by a movement of pronation of the hand. The head is rotated and bring it to the occipital anterior position. And simultaneously the back of the fetus should be rotated by the external hand from the flank to the midline by the outside hand. And half hand method, 4 fingers and not the thumb are introduced into the vagina. Rotation with the right hand. Pressure is applied at the level of the engagement. Right occipital posterior and right occipital transverse fingers are placed anterior to the head and pressure is applied by ulnar border of the hand. And in LOP and LOT, fingers are placed posteriorly and radial border pressure will be applied by the radial border of the hand. And the advantages of the whole-handed method is less space is needed and less chance for displacement of the head. See, obstructed labor. Already we have seen if the size of the baby is more or if the pelvis is contracted, there is a chance for obstruction. Next one is maternal trauma. See, if the labor is getting prolonged, there is a chance for uterine rupture. That also we have seen already. And there is a chance for operative delivery. During the operative delivery, there is a chance for when we are applying forceps or vacuum, there is a chance for injury to the soft tissues of the birth canal. And next is neonatal trauma. Of course, if the labor is getting prolonged, there is a chance for fetal asphyxia and other complications for the baby. Other than that, when we are going for the operative delivery, if you are applying forceps or if you are applying vacuum, there is a chance for trauma or injury to the baby. And cord prolapse. Already we have seen due to the ill-fitting presenting part, sometimes the umbilical cord may escape through the sides of the presenting part. That is cord prolapse. And next is cerebral hemorrhage. If the presenting part is getting caught, in the case of arrest, there is a chance for cerebral hemorrhage. And in case if you are applying in case if you are applying forceps or if you are applying vacuum, there is a chance for cerebral hemorrhage due to that also. These are the complications of the occipital-posterior position. Now we can the nursing management of occipital-posterior position. We should encourage the mother to be in the left side, so that may leads to the rotation of the baby, rotation of the head. Otherwise, you can give pelvic rocking and that may leads to the rotation. Otherwise, you can give knee chest position to the mother, that also may help for the rotation of the head. Otherwise, usually the mother will be having severe back pain, so you can apply sacral pressure. So that counter pressure with the heel may relieve the back pain and it will be support for the mother. And give continuous support and encouragement for the mother. And whenever the mother is taking effort, you should encourage her and you should support her. And always about the progress of the labor and about the condition of the mother, you should inform the family members and you should convince them also. And be supportive for the mother. So that's all about the occipital posterior position. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you.